Number one songs are no longer hit records because streaming killed them. The number one song on the Billboard Hot 100 used to be one of the highest musical accomplishments an artist could achieve given the level of difficulty. And to put it in perspective of how valuable and how difficult getting a number one really used to be, Jay-Z, who is generally seen as the greatest hip-hop artist of all time, has had 10 of his albums reach platinum status. And yet he didn't get his first number one song until 2009 with Empire State of Mind, 13 years after his debut album Reasonable Doubt. You see, having a number one song meant that your track was a dominant force on the airwaves, and this level of chart success translated to real-world sales, heavy radio play, and a lasting cultural impact. And you can see this in how every generation has those songs that truly embodies the spirit of their era. As soon as you hear a song like Everybody Wants to Rule the World, you can immediately feel the spirit of the 80s coming through the production. And if you're like myself and you grew up in the 2000s, then think of the level of nostalgia you experience now whenever you hear a song like Drop It Like It's Hot or Lollipop or even Umbrella. But in today's generation, it's the complete opposite. And it has everything to do with streaming and how streams affect the charts now. You see, I'm a big believer in the idea that stats need context because anybody can selectively just list off different numbers and accolades to spin whatever narrative they feel like. And it's not until you paint the full picture that you can really have an accurate judgment of what you're actually looking at. And on some hate, I don't even like discussion. That's a discussion. Discussing. I don't like discussing music with some of y'all because a lot of y'all get fooled by media propaganda to believe that a song that gets a lot of streams is inherently a great song just because it got a lot of plays.
Views as literally songs, and I know people say, oh, numbers don't matter. There's literally songs of views that have 1 billion plays on Spotify. These are not like, how is that not a good song? Like, I'm confused.
And when y'all start mentioning chart placement, I just tune a lot of y'all out because music is art and good art has never prioritized those things. And worst of all, a lot of these number ones aren't really number ones. But nonetheless, I do respect numbers and accolades because no matter what area you're in, garnering number one hits is an impressive feat. It's just not as impressive when you start comparing it to the old standards. And this is thanks to DSPs like Spotify and Apple Music and the newfound importance of these playlists curated by these providers like Spotify's Rap Caviar. You see, the way we consume music today has changed dramatically. Instead of going to the record store to physically buy one album for $14.99, for $11.99, we now have the access to stream a seemingly unlimited amount of music right on our phones and laptops. And while this shift has made music more accessible than ever, it's also transformed what it means to hit number one on the charts because these days, streaming platforms count plays towards chart rankings, and even more so, they factor in these playlist placements and they use these like Fugazi Jedi mind tricks, aka algorithms and social media virality, to further the facade that these number ones are actually real. Like, bro, Tootsie Slide went number one, and it's nothing more than a demo quality B-side track with boring production, and it honestly sounds like a reference track for an AI rapper that sips holographic lean. And you know what other song went number one? Billie Jean. Like, dog, all that subjective shit for a second and truthfully ask yourself if these two songs belong in the same tier. And I want you to think about number ones like that going forward, at least for this video's sake. In tiers, because while I do like rating systems that are usually much more uniform, I think they can be flawed and inconsistent depending on the subject matter, especially the ones that are traditionally ranked from like 1 to 10, because not all 6s are the same, not all 10s are the same. It's weird. Sometimes it's really just easier to look at two things and see if they look like they belong together. Like you wouldn't put chocolate on top of eggs unless you're the kind of person that eat puppies and yell at babies, right? In essence, should Tootsie Slide ever have went number one? Quick answer, no. Long answer, not in a million, billion, gajillion, smillion, reptilian years. So how did it get to number one to begin with? Simple. Drake is a high streaming artist. And that song wasn't made to last. It was made to get another hit on the resume and be played for TikTok trends. And this has become commonplace with a lot of artists today where they're now being incentivized to make these
30-song album, do a measly 100,000.
in the hopes that at least one of these songs can be paired with a viral dance or trend. And with this newfound need to cater to these streaming rules in order to attain and or maintain success in music, the quality and aura behind a number one song has been diminished. And we're now experiencing an epidemic where where songs and albums are now being made to be playlist ready, and music today is being cooked with microwaves and artificial ingredients, and it's no longer being made with attention to detail, interesting concepts, or cohesion, or just effort, to be honest. But what if I told you that this musical shift didn't actually start in the 2010s, but actually in 1999? Enter.
College students are making good use of the internet. The latest software makes it a bit too easy for students to access their favorite tunes.
For the uninitiated, Napster was the pioneering peer-to-peer file sharing service founded by two college kids, both unironically named Sean. You see, the duo had the goal of creating an online network that allowed people to share and download music
for free.
And it changed the game forever. Because free music in the 2000s was unheard of. And people have always tried to find ways around the rules with any kind of loophole they can get their hands on. And the original method I saw people using when I was growing up was burning CDs. I remember seeing people with bags and really more so these books full of burned CDs and sharing them with their friends. But once Napster had launched and gave people access to an unlimited amount of free music, people all around the world were going crazy, especially teenagers and college students. And at its peak, Napster had about 80 million users registered to their network.
Mr. Min, what happened? Yeah, where is everybody?
Oh, I don't know. Maybe they're home listening to the free music they get off of Easy Jackster.
But as Napster rose to prominence, its effects were having real-world consequences that many couldn't have foreseen. Their presence immediately exposed all the vulnerabilities in the music industry's business model, and it forced the record labels and artists to reconsider their approach to music distribution and promotion. But let's be honest, right? Like, the music industry was not about to let come through and hit a lick on their operations, because after all, everyone knows it's only stealing if you're stealing from corporations and not the other way around, right? Because once you start digging into the piggy banks of powerful billionaires, you just gotta know that they're not gonna stand for it, and the industry responded as such.
The free music service run by Napster was ordered to stop the music.
A federal court ruled Monday Napster must stop allowing music fans to swap copyrighted material.
The business model built on infringement is not only morally wrong, but legally wrong.
The RIAA, a trade group that represents the world's biggest record labels like Universal and Sony, had alleged that Napster was engaging in and assisting others in copying copyrighted music without payment or the express permission of the rights from the owners. The RIAA also claimed that Napster's existence would hurt the sales of the recording industry, and by December 1999, the body had sued Napster in the federal district court for mass copyright infringements and petitioned the court to shut down the website in its entirety. The legal battle was covered extensively in the news worldwide, because if the courts had even slightly favored Napster, it might have spelled the end for the record labels and the industry as a whole. But by July 2001, they were forced to shut down their service and barred from offering their file sharing services. But by that point, it was already too late, and Pandora's box was now open to the world, as other websites from that point would pop up like LimeWire and FrostWire as replacements for the free online music market that Napster had created. It's kind of funny though, because like LimeWire and FrostWire in particular were the ones that I used growing up, and bro, I must have ruined both computers in my house with the amount of viruses that came from them. But hey, at least I was able to listen to Live Love ASAP on my little iPod Touch, so I don't have any regrets, to be honest. And I think there's some kind of like sick, twisted poetic justice here in the fact that two college kids had created a website to have free music because they were more than likely just broke, eating oodles and noodles, and wanted to hear Metallica without paying $18.99 to do it. Honestly, the biggest lesson here is that you really shouldn't underestimate broke creatives with a lot of time on their hands. We are a very dangerous people. And even though Napster itself was short-lived, its impact on the music industry was undoubtedly profound and far-reaching because it accelerated the transition from physical to digital music distribution. And they even laid out the blueprint for future services like iTunes, Spotify, and Apple Music. Napster's legacy is evident in how we consume music today because it can be summed up in the following: on-demand, digital, and personalized. But the industry took the Napster blueprint and completed the final puzzle with the development of algorithms. If Napster was the wheel, then the DSPs would be the Ford Motor Company because algorithms have invaded every aspect of the music industry. Let me go back to the 2000s for a minute because it's the last generation that lived without social media and streaming. During this time, you had programs like 106 and Park and MTV who held the biggest level of influence in dictating what was known in music. And with those programs, you always got a mixture of different genres and subgenres on your screen. 106 and Park never played just one style of rap, and MTV didn't just play the same genre over and over and over and over again. So if you were watching these programs, you were essentially exposed to everything. MTV ran their programs this way because it was the mainstream spot for music videos during that time. And when you're mainstream, you have to be mass appealing and service multiple different markets. So if I'm MTV, I gotta play Outkast, and then I gotta follow it up with Shakira, and then I gotta give some love to Gwen Stefani, and more importantly, Britney Spears, because everybody is watching. So even if you didn't like Britney Spears, you still had to sit through some of her songs and videos to get a chance to watch the bands and artists you actually wanted to watch. And in watching some of the Britney videos, even the backpackers and some of the Dorito Finger crowd had to acknowledge the hits when they heard it, because Britney did have some bops that you just can't deny. Don't even hate right now, please. And this is the opposite of how algorithms function. Algorithms have become one of the most controversial additions to this new digital world, and it's because of the results it's had on dictating our personal biases and perceptions towards the world. Because with algorithms, everything is personalized to whatever you engage with, not necessarily whatever you like. That's a very important distinction. And it doesn't give you the chance to be exposed to something that you might like but don't know about. But that's the kicker though, because that's the goal for any social media app and DSP algorithm, is to keep you on their platforms for as long as possible. And they do that by monitoring our activities and figuring out what to put in our faces based on the data that we engage with. So if I'm a West Side Gun fan with a Spotify account and I use a Smart Shuffle option, I'm never gonna see Taylor Swift or Olivia Rodrigo pop up in my shuffle. It's more than likely gonna consist of The Alchemist, Black Star, Benny the Butcher, or MF Doom. And this phenomenon works in reverse, causing us all to coexist in these different realms where our favorite artists are essentially the only artists that exist to us. And it's this factor more than any other that I believe is the reason why the #1 hit is now dead. Because if my song hits #1, but I only pop up in my fan base's algorithm and I don't end up in yours or the next man's, then at that point, I'm not actually being seen or heard by the masses. I just so happen to get the most views that week, if that makes sense, right? Creating this illusion of popularity where a song's chart position is influenced more by algorithmic creating this illusion of popularity where a song's chart position is influenced more by
1 hour later
algorithmic manipulation than by organic listener choice. This might sound a little confusing, so think about it in this way, right? Mr. Beast. Mr. Beast is the biggest YouTuber in the world and he has 308 million subscribers. That's damn near the population of the US. But I have never heard of him until last year, and to this day, not a single one of his videos have ever been in my homepage or in my suggestion feed. So while he is the biggest in terms of raw numbers, he's only the biggest of those who are in the know and his audience. The same applies with music. Artists like Drake and Taylor Swift can have songs from the new albums debut in the top 10 all at once because they have the star power to overshadow other songs that are on the Billboard charts the same week their album drops. And this is especially true if another popular mainstream act doesn't release anything the same week, because it now gives their audience free reign to run up the streams, giving off the appearance of having an album that is so good that it took over the top 10, when in reality these artists just have a big audience and the impact they're making is primarily with their audience and not the rest of the world. So how has this affected the way we experience music? For us, the audience, the aura of a #1 song has lost some substance, and as streaming becomes more prevalent, it will continue to lose its luster. And for the artist, it means navigating a more complex field where traditional milestones have new meanings and where viral success can be both a blessing and a curse. I guess in the end, while streaming has democratized music and granted us limitless access, it's also reshaped our understanding of success in the industry and how we perceive and value #1 songs.